Michael Jordan finds out a former Bulls trainer is struggling to pay medical bills. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. When Michael Jordan stepped onto the court, the crowd erupted. The bright lights, the roar of thousands of fans, the tension that filled the air, everything about that moment screamed greatness. But the truth was, Michael Jordan wasn't just playing for the crowd, the fame, or the accolades. His drive was something deeper, something only a few would ever fully understand. It was about proving something to himself, to his teammates, and to the world. And at the heart of that was a team that never saw the spotlight but was just as crucial to his success, the unsung heroes of the Chicago Bulls organization. It was 1991, and Jordan was on top of the basketball world. The Bulls had just won their first NBA championship, and the journey to get there had been nothing short of legendary. But while MJ was the face of the team, the leader on the court, he knew that the path to success was paved by others, people who worked tirelessly in the shadows. Among those individuals was someone who would play a pivotal role not only in Jordan's career but also in shaping his legacy: Steve Stricker, the team's head athletic trainer. Steve Stricker wasn't a name that would ever show up on the back of a jersey or make headlines in the sports section, but behind the scenes, he was as much a part of the Bulls' success as Jordan himself. Stricker wasn't just there to provide quick fixes for the occasional sprain or twist. He was the one who ensured Jordan was in peak physical condition for every game, every playoff, every championship run. His role was to maintain the health of the players, particularly Jordan, whose relentless style of play required him to push his body to the limit every night. As the 90s progressed and Jordan's dominance continued, the bond between him and Stricker became undeniable. Stricker was more than a trainer, he was a guardian of Jordan's physical well-being. When Jordan suffered from fatigue, injuries, or minor setbacks, Stricker was there, always watching, always adjusting the recovery plans, always ensuring that the future of the Bulls dynasty wasn't derailed by something as simple as a pulled muscle or a sprained ankle. Their partnership went far beyond just player and trainer, it was one of mutual respect. Jordan trusted Stricker in ways that few ever saw. Stricker wasn't just another face on the Bulls staff, he was integral to the machine that made Jordan who he was. Whether it was in the locker room before a game, or during the long practices in between the grueling season, Stricker was there, guiding Jordan's body through the motions that turned him into a legend. But in the glow of Jordan's ascent to global superstardom, the spotlight rarely fell on Stricker. He wasn't on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He didn't have a long list of endorsement deals, or legions of fans chanting his name. Yet, as Jordan began to realize, his story was far from isolated. It was a story built on the foundation of others, the coaches, the staff, and particularly, the trainers. For Jordan, the success he had on the court couldn't have happened without people like Stricker, people who put in the work behind the scenes to make sure every game, every season, could go on without a hitch. In Chicago, Jordan's success became synonymous with winning. With each passing year, the Bulls built on their momentum, stacking championship titles, solidifying their place in history. By 1993, when the Bulls won their third straight title, it seemed that nothing could break their stride. Jordan was untouchable, a basketball god in the eyes of millions. But the truth behind his success wasn't just in his talent, it was in the careful, meticulous preparation that went into every game, preparation that Stricker provided. Jordan's ability to overcome the physical and mental challenges of the NBA was unparalleled, but it was not without cost. His body, like all athletes, took a beating. His knees, his back, his feet, each part of his body endured the kind of strain that most players could not withstand. And yet, year after year, Jordan kept pushing. He kept playing. He kept winning. The Bulls' training room became a sanctuary of sorts. There, Jordan would be treated for everything from minor sprains to the more serious injuries that occasionally cropped up during the season. Stricker knew the limits of Jordan's body, knew when to push him, when to ease off, when to give him that extra bit of rest. The relationship was built on trust, a trust that no one outside of the Bulls organization truly understood. Stricker was there in the trenches with MJ, his behind-the-scenes partner in greatness. However, despite Jordan's rise to fame and the global spotlight that followed him wherever he went, the team's inner workings were rarely discussed. The role of trainers, the support staff, the people who worked tirelessly behind the curtain, often went unnoticed by the masses. But for Jordan, the true power of the Bulls wasn't just in the Air Jordan persona, it was in the collective effort that surrounded him. And Steve Stricker, a man who had seen the highs and lows of Jordan's career, had played a crucial role in maintaining the foundation of that success. It's important to note that this wasn't just a one-way relationship. While Stricker's job was to keep Jordan's body in optimal condition, Jordan's work ethic pushed everyone around him to be better. The pressure to perform at the highest level wasn't just something Jordan felt, it was something that rippled throughout the entire organization. The team operated as a well-oiled machine, and the parts of that machine, from the players to the trainers, all depended on one another. Jordan's unparalleled drive forced others to elevate their game, to give everything they had, every day. And in turn, Stricker and the rest of the training staff gave Jordan what he needed to continue his pursuit of greatness. As the years went on and Jordan's career continued to climb, the moments of triumph piled up. But for the key members of the Bulls organization, including Stricker, those moments weren't just about the championships, they were about the work done long before the cameras flashed. Behind every championship ring was a story of sacrifice, dedication, and a relentless drive to be the best. And while Jordan would always be remembered as the face of that dynasty, there were many more faces, like Steve Stricker's, that were just as important in the creation of a basketball legend. At the peak of his career, when Jordan seemed invincible, it was easy to forget the hours of preparation and the people who made those victories possible. But as the documentary unfolds, the truth becomes clear: Michael Jordan didn't rise to the top alone. He had the help of those who stood by him, quietly supporting him, and ensuring his body could perform at the highest level. For MJ, the path to greatness was always paved with the hard work of others, the people behind the scenes who truly understood what it took to keep him at his best. As we move through this series, the focus will shift. We'll begin to see the untold stories of those who shaped Jordan's career, and how one act of loyalty, one moment of compassion, would change everything. Because as much as Jordan is known for his championships, his clutch performances, and his scoring titles, the real story is the one that's often forgotten, the story of the people who helped him get there. And that story is about to unfold. Michael Jordan's arrival on the basketball scene was nothing short of electrifying. As a rookie with the Chicago Bulls in 1984, Jordan quickly proved he was more than just a rising star, he was a force of nature. His scoring ability was unmatched, and his drive was infectious. But what many people didn't see behind the dazzling dunks, clutch shots, and NBA titles were the people who kept him on the court, at his best, and in prime condition for the long, grueling seasons that were to come. Among these hidden heroes was Steve Stricker, the Bulls' head athletic trainer, whose job was far less glamorous than Jordan's but just as essential to the team's success. As the man responsible for the physical health of the players, Stricker worked quietly behind the scenes, tending to injuries, managing recovery, and ensuring the players could perform at their peak. He knew the toll professional basketball could take on a body. It wasn't just about strength and endurance, it was about recovering from the daily grind and continuing to perform at the highest level. And in Michael Jordan, Stricker had a player who demanded the best, not just from himself, but from everyone around him. While Jordan's career was filled with awe-inspiring moments on the court, from his jump shots to his championships, Stricker's role was more about the behind-the-scenes work that kept Jordan's body functioning at a championship level. As much as Jordan was known for his talent, his ability to play through pain, and his competitive drive, it was the careful planning and tireless work of Stricker and the training staff that allowed him to push through injury after injury, year after year. The Chicago Bulls' dominance in the 90s was not just the result of Jordan's natural ability or the team's chemistry, it was the result of meticulous preparation, from practice sessions to recovery periods. And in this preparation, Steve Stricker played an irreplaceable role. His training regimen wasn't just about ensuring that the players stayed in shape during the off-season, it was about managing the wear and tear on their bodies during the long NBA season. Every practice, every game, every travel day took a physical toll. Stricker was the person who balanced Jordan's desire to push harder with the reality of his body's limits. For Jordan, there were moments when the physical demands of the game started to catch up. The toll of constant movement, the jumps, the landings, the repeated sprinting across the court, began to show up in ways Jordan could no longer ignore. And at times when others might have taken a break or rested, Jordan pushed on, because his competitive spirit wouldn't allow him to stop. But Stricker was there, watching, adjusting, making sure that Jordan's intensity didn't lead to greater injury. The relationship between Jordan and Stricker was built on trust. Jordan trusted that Stricker would manage his physical needs so he could focus on winning games. Stricker, in turn, understood Jordan's unrelenting nature and worked hard to meet those demands, even when it meant long nights of treatment and recovery. The 1991 season marked a turning point for the Bulls. Michael Jordan, who had long been regarded as one of the best players in the NBA, had already solidified his reputation, but now he was leading the team to something greater, an NBA championship. The work done in the training room was starting to show. The Bulls were healthier, stronger, and better prepared than ever before, thanks in part to Stricker's ability to keep Jordan in top form. But while the championships and accolades were a public celebration of Jordan's success, the unsung heroes like Stricker remained out of the spotlight. Few people outside of the Bulls organization knew just how crucial Stricker's role had been in helping Jordan remain at the top of his game. It wasn't just about treating sprained ankles or pulled muscles, it was about managing Jordan's overall health, preparing him for the intense demands of the NBA, and making sure that his body was ready for each and every game. Jordan might have been the face of the dynasty, but Stricker was a key player in ensuring the team could perform at the highest level. While Michael Jordan's physical prowess became a part of his legend, it was clear that his success didn't come without sacrifice. The training room was where Jordan's body was prepared for battle. And Stricker, a quiet and dedicated professional, was the one who made sure that Jordan's body could withstand the punishment of an NBA season. From knee problems to back stiffness, Stricker was there every step of the way. He worked alongside the team's doctors, constantly adjusting Jordan's recovery plans based on his needs, making sure that the superstar didn't burn out or suffer a major injury that could derail the Bulls' chances of winning it all. The 1990s were defined by the rise of the Chicago Bulls as the dominant force in the NBA. But beyond the big headlines, Jordan's final shots, the championship parades, the iconic moments, there were countless hours spent in the training room, on the practice courts, and behind closed doors, where the real work was done. And while Michael Jordan's competitiveness and natural talent were crucial to his success, it was Steve Stricker's expertise and care that ensured Jordan stayed on the court when it mattered most. By the time the Bulls had secured their third consecutive NBA championship in 1993, Jordan had firmly cemented his place in basketball history. But even as the spotlight intensified, it was important to remember that Jordan wasn't alone in his journey to the top. There were people like Steve Stricker, who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to help him achieve greatness. For Stricker, it wasn't about the accolades or recognition, it was about knowing that he was a crucial part of something bigger than himself, a dynasty that would go down in history. Jordan's relationship with his team, especially the trainers and support staff, went beyond the typical player-coach dynamic. There was a profound understanding of the sacrifices each person made to ensure the team's success. For Stricker, that meant long hours, carefully planned treatments, and an unwavering commitment to ensuring Jordan and the rest of the team could play their best. It was an unspoken bond, built on mutual respect and a shared goal of achieving greatness. And as the Bulls' dynasty continued to grow, so too did the realization that Jordan's success was not just about his incredible skills but about the entire team that supported him, both on and off the court. By the end of the 1993 season, as the Bulls celebrated their third straight title, Michael Jordan's legacy was already in the making. But behind every championship was a story that rarely made it into the headlines, the story of the people who made sure that Jordan stayed healthy, focused, and ready to win. And at the heart of that story was Steve Stricker, a man whose commitment to excellence helped Jordan become the champion he was destined to be. The bright lights of Chicago's United Center never dimmed. The Bulls' dominance in the 1990s became legendary, and with Michael Jordan at the helm, every game felt like a spectacle. The team's reign, marked by 6 championships and countless accolades, made it easy to forget the lives and struggles of the people behind the scenes, the trainers, the staff, the unsung heroes. However, as the years went on, one such hero's struggle would soon be revealed, and it would lead to a pivotal moment in the Bulls' storied history. By the mid-90s, Jordan had already established his greatness on the court, and the team's dynasty was solidified. But the players' bodies, even those of the greatest athletes, can only take so much. While Jordan's physical endurance and skill were well known, the toll on his body became apparent over time. It wasn't just the knees or the back injuries, it was the constant demands of a grueling schedule, the relentless pressure to maintain peak performance, and the wear and tear of a career that had seen more than its fair share of battles. But while Jordan's journey through the rigors of professional basketball was a familiar tale, what many people didn't know was that those closest to him, those who made it possible for him to keep going, were facing their own struggles. One of the most painful stories, however, came not from Jordan himself, but from someone who had been by his side throughout his entire career, Steve Stricker, the man who had worked tirelessly as the team's head athletic trainer. Stricker was, in many ways, the silent force behind Jordan's health. He had kept MJ in top form, helping him through injuries and ensuring that he was always physically prepared to perform at the highest level. Yet, by the time the 1990s were drawing to a close, Stricker found himself in an unexpected and dire situation. He was struggling to cover medical expenses. Despite his decades of service to the Chicago Bulls, his own healthcare needs were now at risk due to insurance complications and the mounting costs of his own medical bills. It was a situation that shocked Jordan, especially considering the many years Stricker had dedicated to ensuring that he and the team were in optimal shape. Jordan knew Stricker personally, understanding the sacrifices and hard work that went into each season. The two shared a relationship that went beyond that of player and trainer. It was built on mutual respect, on the deep trust that Jordan placed in Stricker's hands to keep him healthy and competitive. As Stricker's medical issues worsened, he found himself facing a bureaucratic nightmare with his insurance provider. Despite the years of service he had given to the Bulls, despite the countless hours spent ensuring the team's success, Stricker was now caught in a system that didn't seem to care about his long history or his commitment to the sport. The insurance company, which should have provided him with the medical coverage he needed, instead pushed back on claims, denied necessary treatments, and made it difficult for him to receive the care that was essential for his health. For Stricker, it felt like an immense betrayal. He had dedicated his life to helping these athletes, keeping them in peak condition while they went on to achieve fame and fortune. Yet when it came time for him to seek help, he was left to fight an impersonal, unyielding system that was more concerned with bottom lines than with the health of the people who had helped build the legacy of a championship dynasty. As word of Stricker's struggles began to circulate, Michael Jordan, who had spent years training under Stricker's watchful eye, was taken aback. He couldn't understand how someone who had given so much to him and his team could be left to deal with such a crisis. This was the man who had helped keep him on the court through countless injuries, who had ensured his body was in perfect condition for every season, every playoff, every game. Stricker had made Jordan's success possible, and now it seemed that no one was there to return the favor. Jordan, always fiercely loyal to those who had supported him, decided that he would not sit idly by while a person he considered a close friend and ally was suffering. He knew that this wasn't just about money, it was about doing the right thing, about making sure that those who had helped him, who had worked tirelessly for his success, were treated with the respect and dignity they deserved. And so, Jordan took action. With the same relentless drive that had defined his career on the court, he made a decision that would forever change the course of Stricker's life. Rather than sitting back and allowing the insurance company to continue denying Stricker the help he needed, Jordan decided to confront the issue head-on. He would not allow Stricker's story to be one of neglect. In an act that surprised even those closest to him, Jordan stormed the insurance office. The moment he arrived, it was clear that the company had never anticipated a confrontation like this. The insurance agents, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of one of the most famous athletes in the world, were unprepared for what was about to unfold. Jordan's presence in the insurance office wasn't just about securing Stricker's medical coverage. It was about sending a message that loyalty, respect, and human decency should not be disregarded by an impersonal system. The insurance company had done its best to ignore Stricker's plight, but Jordan was having none of it. He made his demands clear, and with his influence, he ensured that Stricker's medical needs were met. The emotional impact of this moment wasn't lost on anyone in the room. It was a stark reminder that, in the end, no one should be forgotten or ignored, no matter how much success or fame one achieves. Jordan's actions were a testament to his character, his commitment not just to his team, but to the people who had made his career possible. For Stricker, the relief was immediate. The battle that had seemed insurmountable was suddenly over, thanks to the man he had worked alongside for so many years. It wasn't just the medical treatment that Stricker now had access to, it was the recognition, the acknowledgement, and the care that had been so long overdue. This moment would remain etched in the history of the Chicago Bulls not because of another championship win, but because it marked a powerful act of loyalty, of friendship, and of humanity. Jordan's decision to take matters into his own hands wasn't just about ensuring Stricker's health, it was about doing what was right. In a world where personal struggles often go unnoticed, Michael Jordan reminded everyone that greatness wasn't just about what you achieve for yourself, but what you do for others. Stricker's crisis, though painful, became a turning point for both men, a moment that would forever bind them in a way that transcended the world of basketball. By the mid-90s, Michael Jordan had become an icon, but there was a critical group of people who worked behind the scenes to keep his legend alive. Trainers, coaches, and staff all played their part in the relentless pursuit of perfection. Among them was Steve Stricker, the Chicago Bulls head athletic trainer, who had been there for Jordan through every twist, turn, and injury. Stricker was the unsung hero who helped Jordan recover from injuries, pushed him to get back to form after every setback, and managed his body as it was tested by the rigorous demands of professional basketball. It wasn't just about taping ankles or massaging muscles. Stricker was the one who devised strategies to keep Jordan's body functioning at its peak, allowing him to push through minor injuries and sometimes even pain. Jordan's journey to greatness was built on his competitiveness and the drive to be the best, but it was also dependent on the relentless dedication of people like Stricker. While the world saw Jordan's soaring dunks and clutch shots, Stricker was often the silent partner, ensuring that the man responsible for all the drama on the court could perform day in and day out. For years, Stricker had been the backbone of the Bulls' medical staff, quietly managing injuries and providing essential care to all the players. He wasn't a part of the spotlight that Jordan basked in, but behind the scenes, he was one of the main reasons the team had seen such sustained success. Through sprained ankles, back pain, and muscle strains, Stricker was always there. Jordan's ability to recover from injury was often the difference between a missed game or an epic performance. Stricker had always been there to ensure that Jordan would step back on the court, no matter what. But as time went on, Stricker's own health began to deteriorate. Years of working with professional athletes, seeing them push their bodies to extremes, had taken a toll on him. He needed care, but what followed shocked many. Stricker had always been dedicated to the players, but now, it was his own medical needs that were being ignored. Despite having worked for the Bulls for years, Stricker found himself facing an overwhelming financial burden. The cost of medical bills started to pile up, and the support that Stricker had once given the players seemed to be absent when he needed it the most. The insurance company that was supposed to cover his medical needs was denying his claims, leaving Stricker unable to afford the care he needed. It was a crisis that shocked Jordan, a man who had relied on Stricker for so many years. Jordan had seen Stricker as a partner, someone who had kept him healthy throughout his career. The idea that Stricker, the man who had been so integral to his success, was now struggling to pay for his own medical care was something Jordan couldn't comprehend. Jordan, who was always known for his loyalty, couldn't just stand by while someone who had helped him achieve everything he had went without the necessary resources for proper medical treatment. It was one thing to hear that Stricker was having trouble, but it was another thing entirely to realize the depth of the crisis. The insurance company's treatment of Stricker was the last straw. He had dedicated his life to helping the Bulls succeed. Yet now, when it was his turn to get support, he was caught in the bureaucracy of a cold, impersonal system that couldn't see past its numbers. Stricker, who had spent years helping Jordan and others achieve greatness, found himself facing a challenge he hadn't anticipated. He was being treated like just another file in a drawer. Jordan learned of the situation through a conversation with one of the Bulls' front office members, who had quietly made him aware of Stricker's mounting medical bills and the insurance company's refusal to cover them. To say Jordan was upset would be an understatement. He was furious. How could the man who had helped him recover countless times over the years be left to fight for the very thing that Jordan had never had to worry about, his health and well-being? As a superstar, Jordan had the financial means to provide for himself and his family without worry, but Stricker's situation was different. He wasn't in the public eye, he wasn't making millions of dollars, and he wasn't receiving the same level of care and attention. The moment was a stark reminder of the inequality that existed even within the world of professional sports. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the injustice of it all. Stricker wasn't just another trainer, he was a key part of Jordan's success. Every game, every victory, and every moment of greatness Jordan achieved had Stricker's fingerprints all over it. The man who had helped Jordan battle through injuries, who had kept him physically ready for each and every game, was now being forced to fight a battle of his own, one that had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with his own survival. Jordan could not ignore the injustice. He wasn't the type of person who could sit back and let the system take its course. He had always played with intensity, always fought for every point, every shot, and every victory. Now, he would take that same energy and focus on making sure Stricker got what he deserved. Without hesitation, Jordan took action. He made a phone call, but not just any call, he made a call to the insurance company. This was no ordinary call, it was the call of a man who had achieved greatness and wasn't about to let bureaucracy dictate the fate of someone who had been with him through every high and low. Jordan made it clear, Stricker's medical treatment was not up for debate. In a bold move, Jordan took it a step further and showed up in person at the insurance office. The moment he walked into the office, it was clear that the insurance agents were caught off guard. They had never expected an athlete of Jordan's caliber to walk through their doors, let alone challenge their decisions face to face. Jordan's presence in that office wasn't just about getting Stricker's claims approved, it was about sending a message. He wasn't going to stand by while someone who had helped him reach the pinnacle of success was left to fend for himself. The insurance company may have been willing to overlook Stricker's case, but Jordan wasn't going to let that happen. He wasn't going to let Stricker be treated like just another claim. The meeting was intense. Jordan wasn't just pleading for Stricker's health, he was demanding respect. He wasn't a client. He wasn't a business transaction. He was a person, and so was Stricker. The insurance company had no choice but to take Jordan's demand seriously. They knew that the world would be watching. Stricker's claims were eventually approved, and he was given the care he needed. But beyond the medical treatment, the emotional impact of the entire situation was undeniable. Stricker had spent years helping the Bulls dynasty thrive. Now, in a twist of fate, Jordan had stepped up to return the favor in the most significant way possible. For Stricker, the relief was palpable. He had feared the worst, being forced into a situation where his health was compromised. But Jordan's unwavering loyalty and commitment to the people who helped him would ensure that he didn't have to fight that battle alone. Jordan's actions would forever be remembered, not just for the championships or the greatness on the court, but for the way he stood up for someone who had helped him rise to the top. In a world that often overlooks those behind the scenes, Michael Jordan showed that real greatness lies not just in achievements, but in the way we treat others. It was a typical morning in the city of Chicago. The streets bustled with traffic, the noise of daily life flooding the air, while inside a small office, a conversation was unfolding that would change everything for both Michael Jordan and Steve Stricker. As word of Stricker's financial and medical struggles spread among those close to him, the impact was immediate. Those who had worked with Stricker knew how much he had given to the Bulls, to the players, and to Jordan, but it wasn't until Jordan himself became aware of Stricker's situation that the game changed. The first time Jordan learned of Stricker's plight was through a quiet conversation in the Bulls' front office. At first, Jordan's reaction was one of disbelief. Stricker, the man who had kept him physically prepared for years, was now struggling to cover his own medical expenses. The news didn't sit well with Jordan. His mind raced as he thought about all the time Stricker had been by his side, working tirelessly to ensure his body could withstand the grueling NBA season. It felt wrong. Stricker had been so committed to helping Jordan become the best, and now, it seemed like the system was failing him when he needed help the most. Jordan's loyalty to those who had supported him throughout his career was one of the key pillars of his success. He'd never been the type to leave someone behind, especially someone who had been integral to his journey. The more he thought about Stricker's situation, the more frustrated he became. The realization that Stricker's medical needs were being ignored, despite his years of dedication, was infuriating. Jordan had always prided himself on loyalty, and this felt like a betrayal, not by Stricker, but by the very system that was supposed to protect him. At first, Jordan took the news in stride, thinking that someone would step in to help. But as the weeks went on, it became clear that the situation was not resolving itself. The insurance company was stubborn in its refusal to cover Stricker's medical bills, and Stricker found himself sinking deeper into a financial hole. It was a crushing reality for someone who had devoted years of his life to the very game that had made Jordan a global superstar. It wasn't just about the money for Jordan, it was about the principle of it all. Stricker had done so much for him, for the Bulls, and for basketball as a whole. He'd worked tirelessly to keep the players in top physical form, knowing that without proper care, the Bulls' championship dreams would have been nothing more than a fantasy. Stricker wasn't just a trainer, he was a crucial part of the success Jordan had achieved, and it was deeply personal for him to see the man who had helped him fight through injury after injury now fighting his own battle, with little help in sight. Jordan knew that he had to act. His drive to succeed on the basketball court was matched only by his sense of loyalty to the people who had supported him. He wasn't one to sit idly by when someone in his circle was in need, especially someone like Stricker, who had been there for him every step of the way. Jordan began to plan his next move, determined to use his influence and his position to make sure that Stricker received the help he deserved. The moment Jordan decided to take action was a defining one. It wasn't just about fixing a problem, it was about doing what was right. Jordan understood the value of hard work, dedication, and sacrifice. He had experienced it firsthand, from his early days in the NBA to the heights of his career. He knew what it took to get to the top, and he also knew that no one could do it alone. Stricker had been there for him through thick and thin, and now, it was Jordan's turn to return the favor. One morning, without hesitation, Jordan picked up the phone and called the insurance company himself. He wasn't going to let anyone else handle it. This was his fight now, and he wasn't going to sit back and allow Stricker to suffer any longer. The call was blunt and direct. Jordan wasn't calling to discuss the problem, he was calling to resolve it. He made it clear that Stricker's medical claims were not up for debate, and that the insurance company needed to step up and fulfill its responsibility. When the person on the other end of the line heard Jordan's voice, there was no doubt that this was no ordinary call. The insurance company, which had been stonewalling Stricker's claims for weeks, was now facing the weight of Jordan's influence. Jordan's voice carried the power of someone who had never been denied anything in his career. He demanded action, and he wasn't going to accept anything less than a solution. The conversation was intense. Jordan wasn't just negotiating, he was insisting on justice for someone who had given his life to helping others. As Jordan laid out his demands, it became clear that the insurance company had underestimated the impact of Stricker's situation. The bureaucratic walls that had been built up to prevent payment crumbled under Jordan's pressure. But Jordan didn't stop there. He wasn't content with just making a phone call and hoping for the best. He knew that Stricker deserved more than that. He knew that the system was flawed, and he wasn't about to let it get away with causing harm to someone who had spent years supporting his career. So, Jordan took his advocacy one step further. In a move that shocked even those closest to him, Jordan decided to go directly to the source. He didn't just make another call, he physically showed up at the insurance company's headquarters in downtown Chicago. This wasn't a press appearance or a publicity stunt. It was a personal visit from one of the most famous athletes in the world to the office of an insurance company that had tried to deny someone who had worked tirelessly behind the scenes. The moment Jordan walked through the doors of the insurance office, everything changed. The staff, who had been working under the assumption that their refusal to pay would go unnoticed, were now confronted by the presence of a man whose name was known around the globe. Jordan's influence was undeniable, and in that moment, the insurance company was forced to confront the fact that they could no longer ignore Stricker's needs. The conversation was intense, with Jordan making it clear that his loyalty to Stricker was non-negotiable. He demanded answers, and he insisted that Stricker's medical bills be paid in full. It wasn't about money, it was about doing right by someone who had helped Jordan achieve greatness. By the end of the meeting, Jordan had secured what Stricker needed. The insurance company agreed to cover his medical bills. But the true impact of Jordan's actions went beyond just getting the claims approved. In a world where the rich and powerful are often able to bend systems to their will, Jordan's intervention sent a message. It showed that loyalty and integrity mattered, and that no one, no matter how small their role in the grand scheme of things, should ever be left behind. For Stricker, the relief was palpable. The financial burden that had weighed him down for so long was finally lifted. He could focus on his health and recovery without the constant stress of mounting medical bills. And for Jordan, this act of loyalty reinforced his belief in standing by those who have supported him. He wasn't just a basketball player, he was a leader, a friend, and a man of integrity. The moment he took action was one that would forever change both his and Stricker's lives. Jordan's intervention didn't just solve Stricker's immediate problem, it set a precedent for what it meant to be truly loyal, not just to teammates, but to those who work behind the scenes to make success possible. It was a moment that defined not just Jordan's character, but the kind of person he was, someone who always stepped up when it mattered most. The insurance industry is often seen as a monolith of impersonal bureaucracy. Behind closed doors, decisions are made based on numbers, not faces. Behind every claim lies a faceless system designed to filter out claims, minimize payouts, and keep costs as low as possible. For most people, navigating this system is a struggle they face alone. But for Steve Stricker, the Chicago Bulls' legendary head athletic trainer, this struggle was about to become far more personal and far more public. Stricker's story was simple. He had spent the best years of his career helping NBA players achieve their dreams. He had worked tirelessly for the Chicago Bulls, keeping them physically prepared for their grueling NBA seasons. His work was foundational to the team's incredible success in the 90s, particularly helping Michael Jordan stay healthy during the Bulls' sixth championship run. Stricker's behind-the-scenes contributions were vital to the Bulls' dominance, and yet, when Stricker found himself in need of medical care, he was faced with a cold, unyielding system. Despite the critical work Stricker had done for the Bulls, his insurance provider was not forthcoming with help. The insurance company had failed to honor claims related to his medical care, leaving Stricker stuck in an overwhelming and frustrating situation. He was facing mounting bills for medical treatments he needed but couldn't afford, and every time he tried to resolve the issue, he was met with delay, dismissal, and outright denial. At first, Stricker believed the problem would be temporary, a simple issue that would resolve itself. But as weeks passed, and his medical needs went unmet, Stricker's frustration grew. He had been a loyal servant to the Bulls, had given everything to ensure the team's success, and now, when he needed something as basic as healthcare, he found himself lost in the red tape of an impersonal system. What made the situation even more infuriating was the insurance company's refusal to take his case seriously. Stricker's claims were either delayed, reduced, or outright denied. There was no acknowledgement of his years of service to the team, no consideration that the man who had helped the Bulls' stars, especially Jordan, become the best in the world was now being left to fight for his own medical care. It wasn't just a lack of respect, it was a sign of the deeper flaws within the system. The insurance company saw Stricker as just another claim to be processed, another case to be closed. For Stricker, this wasn't just a matter of health care, it was a matter of dignity. He had given so much to the Bulls, investing not just his time but his passion and energy into making the team successful. He had worked alongside Jordan through countless injuries and recovery periods, knowing that his role was pivotal to the team's success. Now, when Stricker himself was in need, the system that should have supported him was failing him. He had invested so much in the players, and the organization, yet when it came time for the organization to step up and support him, it felt like no one was there. Meanwhile, Michael Jordan had no idea that Stricker's struggle was growing. Jordan had always relied on Stricker to be there for him, whether it was recovering from a sprained ankle or preparing for a big game. The trainer had always been a constant in his career, and Jordan trusted Stricker to get him back on the court no matter the injury. But when Jordan learned of Stricker's situation, he was shaken. He couldn't understand how someone who had given so much could be left to fight for the medical care he needed. Stricker's struggles with the insurance company had begun quietly, without fanfare or attention. But the more Jordan learned, the more he realized that Stricker's issue wasn't just a personal one, it was a symptom of a larger problem. The world of sports is often viewed through a narrow lens, where athletes are at the center of attention. But behind every game, every practice, every championship run, there are countless people whose contributions go unnoticed. Stricker was one of those people. He wasn't seeking fame or recognition, but when his health became a concern, he expected to be treated with the same respect he had given to so many others. Jordan had always been a fighter on the court. He understood the pressure of being constantly in the spotlight, the stress of living up to expectations. But now, as he faced the injustice of Stricker's situation, Jordan realized that the fight he was about to embark on wasn't for a game, it was for a person who had given everything to help him succeed. Jordan's loyalty to Stricker was not just out of gratitude, it was out of the recognition that Stricker had played an integral role in making Jordan the champion he had become. As the situation continued to unfold, Stricker's frustration with the insurance company grew. He had reached out to his representatives, sent letters, made calls, yet there was no movement. It seemed that the insurance company was more concerned with its own bottom line than with the needs of one of the people who had helped an entire franchise reach the top of the basketball world. Stricker's medical needs were becoming more urgent. The physical toll of his years of service to the team was beginning to take its toll, and without proper care, his condition could worsen. Yet despite the urgency of his situation, the insurance company continued to drag its feet, forcing Stricker to wait for a resolution that never seemed to come. He couldn't afford to wait much longer, but the insurance company, much like the bureaucracy of any large corporation, was slow to act. It was at this point that Jordan's frustration boiled over. He knew Stricker, knew the dedication and hard work he had put into the Bulls' success, and the idea that Stricker was being ignored by the insurance company was something that Jordan couldn't accept. He had seen enough of the behind-the-scenes struggles of professional athletes to know that this was not just an isolated incident. It was a problem that extended far beyond Stricker, a reminder of how often people like him were overlooked, even when their contributions were essential to the success of a multi-million-dollar organization. Jordan knew that it wasn't just about making a call and fixing the issue. It was about sending a message to everyone involved. The message was clear. Stricker's contribution to the Bulls wasn't just a service, it was a partnership, one that had helped Jordan and the entire team achieve greatness. If the insurance company wasn't willing to step up, then Jordan would have to take matters into his own hands. The bureaucratic coldness of the insurance company had reached a breaking point. Jordan wasn't about to let it continue. He had always been someone who fought for what he believed in, and this time, the fight wasn't on the basketball court, it was for someone who had always had his back. Jordan would go to any length to make sure that Stricker's needs were met, even if that meant confronting an entire system that had failed him. Stricker had done his part to help Jordan become the legend he was, and now, it was time for Jordan to return the favor. When Michael Jordan took action, he did so with the same intensity and purpose that defined his career on the basketball court. For years, Jordan had lived under the spotlight, his every move scrutinized, his successes celebrated. But behind the bright lights and the championships, there were moments when the stakes were higher than any game. In the case of Steve Stricker, Jordan faced a situation that was far removed from basketball, yet it carried a level of personal importance that demanded his intervention. Stricker had been there for Jordan through thick and thin, always on hand to patch him up after injuries, to ensure he was in peak condition for every game, every series, and every championship. But now, the man who had kept Jordan physically ready for the battles on the court was in need himself. Stricker's struggle to get medical bills covered by his insurance company had reached a breaking point, and despite his years of service to the Bulls, the system was failing him. Jordan's initial response had been to make a few phone calls to the insurance company. At first, the company tried to brush him off, assuming that they could ignore the situation and avoid confrontation. After all, they were dealing with a star athlete, but one who typically wasn't involved in issues outside of the game. However, Jordan wasn't going to let the situation slide. The moment he knew about Stricker's battle, something inside him snapped. He couldn't stand by and watch his friend and ally suffer through a system that had repeatedly failed him. So, Jordan did what he had always done when faced with a challenge. He took matters into his own hands. Rather than leaving it to representatives or intermediaries, he decided to go straight to the source. The insurance company had ignored Stricker long enough. Jordan wasn't going to allow them to continue taking advantage of him. He was done with phone calls. This time, he would show up in person. It wasn't just about making a few demands. This was about sending a message that those who had helped him on his journey would never be forgotten, that loyalty meant something in a world that often ignored the unsung heroes. Stricker had been an integral part of the Bulls' success, working tirelessly behind the scenes. He wasn't just a trainer, he was a partner in the journey to greatness. Jordan knew that if he didn't step up, Stricker might never get the care he needed. Jordan's decision to storm the insurance office wasn't calculated or planned out in detail. It was a decision born out of emotion, out of a sense of loyalty, and out of a burning desire to do right by the people who had helped him. It wasn't just about Stricker's health, it was about making sure that no one who had been part of his success was left behind. When Jordan arrived at the insurance company's headquarters in downtown Chicago, the scene was nothing short of dramatic. The staff had been caught completely off guard by the appearance of the world-famous basketball legend. In the sterile, corporate environment of the insurance office, Jordan's entrance was like a tidal wave crashing into a quiet sea. The employees, who had spent weeks trying to deny Stricker's claims, were now confronted with the undeniable presence of one of the greatest athletes in history. Jordan's arrival was symbolic of everything that had gone wrong with the situation. He wasn't just a star athlete, he was a man who understood the importance of the people who supported him. For years, Stricker had been there for Jordan, helping him recover from injury after injury, ensuring that Jordan could keep playing at a high level. Now, it was Jordan's turn to help. And he wasn't about to sit back and wait for the bureaucracy of insurance companies to handle it. Inside the insurance office, things quickly went from business as usual to chaos. Employees who had been content with dismissing Stricker's case suddenly found themselves in a whirlwind of questions, demands, and pressure. Jordan didn't mince words. He made it clear that Stricker's medical care wasn't just a matter of paperwork, it was personal, and it was non-negotiable. He was done with waiting on hold or getting transferred to different departments. This wasn't going to be swept under the rug like all the other claims. This was Steve Stricker, the man who had helped him become a 6-time champion, and Jordan wasn't going to let anyone forget that. The employees at the insurance company tried to maintain their composure, but it was clear that they were out of their depth. They had assumed that, like so many others, Stricker's case would be ignored. After all, he wasn't a celebrity or a millionaire athlete. He was just a trainer, a member of the support staff. But they had underestimated the power of loyalty and the unyielding determination of Michael Jordan. This wasn't a problem that could be ignored or swept under the rug. Jordan's confrontation wasn't just about getting Stricker the care he needed, it was about ensuring that the insurance company understood the stakes. The Bulls were a family, and Stricker had been a key part of that family. Jordan had spent countless hours on the court, relying on Stricker's expertise to stay healthy and in top condition. Now, Jordan was calling in that favor. The conversation in the insurance office was intense, with Jordan making it clear that Stricker's case was not going to be ignored any longer. He demanded that the insurance company cover the bills, and he wasn't going to leave until it was resolved. Jordan's approach wasn't aggressive, but it was firm. He wasn't asking for special treatment, he was demanding fairness for someone who had given so much to the Bulls and to him personally. The power dynamic in the room had shifted. What had once been a routine matter of claims and paperwork had become a fight for what was right. The insurance company had never expected to face a confrontation like this, let alone one led by one of the most recognizable athletes in the world. Jordan wasn't just a celebrity, he was a symbol of loyalty, and the insurance company was now faced with the consequences of its actions. They could either cover Stricker's bills or deal with the fallout of angering a legend. After what felt like an eternity, the insurance company caved. Stricker's medical bills would be covered. The paperwork would be processed, and Stricker could finally get the treatment he needed. But it wasn't just about the paperwork, it was about sending a message. Jordan had made it clear that the system would not prevail when it came to loyalty and integrity. He had used his power not just to protect his own interests, but to stand up for someone who had been there for him throughout his career. For Stricker, the relief was immediate. He could now focus on his health, without the constant burden of medical debt hanging over him. But more than that, he understood the depth of Jordan's loyalty. Jordan had taken the fight to the insurance company, not because it was easy, but because it was the right thing to do. He had fought for someone who had given so much to him, and in doing so, had shown the world what true loyalty and friendship looked like. For Jordan, the victory wasn't just about winning a battle for someone's medical care, it was about reaffirming the importance of the people who had been part of his journey. Stricker's role in Jordan's success went beyond the physical. It was about the trust they had built over the years, the partnership that had helped the Bulls dominate the NBA. And in this moment, Jordan had demonstrated that no one would be forgotten, no matter how small their role in the larger story. In the end, Jordan didn't just secure Stricker's medical care, he made sure that the entire world saw what it meant to truly care for the people who help us succeed. As Michael Jordan's career evolved into one of the most iconic in sports history, he quickly realized that his role was never just about basketball. He was an athlete, yes, but also a symbol, a representative of excellence and perseverance. The expectations placed on him were immense. But as his fame grew, so did his understanding of the broader responsibilities he had, not just to his family, his teammates, or his fans, but to those who had supported him along the way, both on and off the court. For years, Jordan's fame and wealth were often seen as rewards for his success. He was the face of Nike, the icon behind the Air Jordan brand, a cultural phenomenon. His image graced the cover of magazines, his highlights were replayed endlessly on television, and every time he stepped on the court, it was an event. But as his career progressed, Jordan began to understand that his influence had a weight far beyond basketball. He was one of the most famous people in the world, and with that fame came a unique responsibility. Jordan had already proven time and again that he could deliver on the court. He had won multiple championships, MVP awards, and All-Star selections, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest players in the history of the NBA. Yet, it was clear that there was more to his story than simply playing basketball. His efforts off the court, the ways in which he used his platform, would define a part of his legacy that few expected. While much of the world focused on his athletic prowess, Jordan began to see the hidden stories, the ones that didn't make the headlines, the ones that lived in the shadows of the locker rooms, the gym floors, and behind the scenes. He had learned to rely on a team of professionals, including his trainers, medical staff, coaches, and other support staff. These were the people who helped him maintain his edge. They were the ones who made sure he could play at the highest level despite the intense physical toll professional sports take on the body. One of those people was Steve Stricker, the Chicago Bulls head athletic trainer. Stricker had been there for Jordan during some of the most painful moments of his career. He had taped Jordan's ankles, massaged his muscles after every game, and worked tirelessly to ensure that Jordan was always ready for battle. Stricker's role was critical to the success of the Bulls, but it was a role that the public often overlooked. Few people outside of the organization truly understood how much Stricker contributed to the team's success. But Jordan understood. And as Stricker's health and financial situation took a turn for the worse, Jordan was faced with a new challenge: how to support the man who had supported him for years. Stricker, the man who had kept Jordan's body functioning at its highest level, was now struggling to get the medical care he needed. Despite years of dedication to the Bulls, Stricker found himself caught in a bureaucratic nightmare with his insurance provider. Despite being an essential member of the Bulls organization, he was being denied care. For Jordan, this was unacceptable. Jordan had always been a fiercely loyal person. His commitment to his teammates was legendary, but his loyalty wasn't reserved only for the people he played alongside. It extended to those who worked behind the scenes. When he realized that Stricker was being mistreated by the system, Jordan knew he had to step up. He had seen the sacrifices others had made for him, and now it was his turn to give back. His mission wasn't just about fixing a problem, it was about sending a message. Loyalty, respect, and humanity must be at the heart of everything we do, especially when it comes to those who help us succeed. The decision to confront the insurance company wasn't taken lightly. Jordan didn't make this move because it was easy or because it would be good for his image. He did it because it was the right thing to do. In a world that often overlooked the efforts of those working behind the scenes, Jordan chose to shine a light on them. His confrontation with the insurance company was more than just a fight for Stricker's medical coverage. It was a stand for integrity and for the people who make success possible, even if their contributions are rarely seen. By the time Jordan showed up at the insurance office, he had already made it clear that Stricker's case was not negotiable. The moment he walked through the door, it was clear that the company had never anticipated a confrontation like this. The atmosphere inside the office changed from business as usual to one of tension. The employees who had been dismissing Stricker's claims were now faced with the reality that Jordan wasn't going to back down. His reputation as a fierce competitor on the basketball court had now translated into a fight for what was right in the business world. But Jordan wasn't just demanding that Stricker's bills be paid. He was making a larger point. He was showing that, for all his fame and success, he had not forgotten the people who had helped him along the way. He had been given everything, fame, money, respect, but it was the people like Stricker, those who worked in the shadows, who had made his success possible. Jordan had built a dynasty with the Bulls, but Stricker had been an integral part of that dynasty's foundation. Now, Jordan was returning the favor, ensuring that the man who had helped him become the player he was would receive the care he needed. The fight wasn't easy. The insurance company wasn't quick to resolve Stricker's claims. But Jordan's persistence paid off. The company eventually agreed to cover Stricker's medical costs, and Stricker's relief was palpable. The fight had been long and hard, but it was a victory, not just for Stricker, but for the principle that no one who works tirelessly for the success of others should ever be forgotten or left behind. Jordan's actions sent a clear message. Being a successful athlete wasn't just about scoring points or winning games. It was about using your platform and influence to make a difference in the lives of others. Jordan had the power to change the outcome of Stricker's situation, and he used it. This was the beginning of Jordan's realization that his legacy would not just be about basketball. His legacy would be about his ability to stand up for what was right, no matter the odds. For Jordan, his role as an athlete had always been clear. He was to be the best, to win championships, to dominate the court. But his role as a person, a mentor, and a friend was something that was evolving. Over the years, he had come to understand that his influence was more than just a tool for personal gain. He could use his position to support others, to uplift those who had helped him along the way, and to ensure that the principles of loyalty, respect, and fairness were upheld in all areas of life, not just in the locker room. As the dust settled from the confrontation with the insurance company, Jordan's commitment to Stricker's well-being became clear. He wasn't just the greatest basketball player of all time, he was a man of character and integrity. In helping Stricker, Jordan had taken a stand for the people who made success possible, for the ones who worked behind the scenes, and for the importance of loyalty in a world that often forgets the value of hard work and dedication.